Thanks for listening to the Mornings with Carmen LaBerge podcast, made available thanks to support from listeners just like you.
Your daily encouragement that God has the world in the hollow of his hand. This is Mornings with Carmen LaBerge on Faith Radio.
If we're gonna fly, we fly like eagles, arms held wide. If we're gonna fear, we fear no evil. We will rise. By your power we will go. By your spirit we are bold. If we're gonna stand, we stand as giants. If we're gonna walk, we walk as lions.
Hello, hello, hello. It's hour 2 of Mornings with Carmen here on this Friday, May the 10th, 2024. I love that you guys are already checking in on the text line this morning. Good morning, David. Good morning, Mary and Anita and Sarah and others as well. David wants to know in the Friday farm report, do I have cherry trees on the farm? Yes, David, we have cherry trees. They have blossomed. He says that he has 4 and they are just starting to blossom. I will tell you that the season of blossoming for all of the trees, the cherries, the pears, the peaches, the apples, I just love it. Right now, our honeysuckle is in full bloom. Lilac, like that's what's blooming where I am right now. What's blooming where you are? I would love to know that. The text line is open, 877-933-2484. Everything that's blooming right now, I just want you to consider, like that's God sending you flowers. So if you're saying, nobody's going to send me flowers today, resist that temptation, and instead just thank God for all the flowers he's sending. Like, oh, God, look at those beautiful daisies you sent me. Look at those beautiful whatever's blooming where you are, right? So God's sending you flowers today. Don't miss that and revel in it. Enjoy it. Yes, those cherry blossoms. God's sending you flowers today, right there on the end of those branches, David, and I love that. Thank you for texting. Again, the text line's open, 877-933-2484. Lots of headlines these days about what's happening on college campuses across the country. Commencements being canceled in some places or at least suspended in some form. College presidents facing all kinds of scrutiny. Some colleges agreeing to open up their investment accounts so that students can examine them, which just seems silly on the face of it, but there you go. When it comes to commencement addresses, there are lots of people being disinvited to offer a commencement address. So I just thought I'd take this opportunity, since we're all together, to offer a commencement address. It's commencement season, so here's mine. Dear graduates, faculty, family, and friends, be a resilient disciple. Be a tennis ball, not an egg. There you go. That would be my metaphorical commencement address that I would offer up. As we gather today to celebrate your remarkable journey to this point along life's path, I know you feel like you've arrived. And yet, I got to tell you, in reality, you're just now beginning. You are going to hear this passage from, student to whatever else it is that you're about to become, right? You're going to hear this described as beginning a new chapter, standing at a threshold. You're going to even hear from some people the ridiculous claim that the world is now your oyster. I don't even know what that means. So, into that mix, I'm just going to add my own metaphor. Be a tennis ball, not an egg. That's right. Be resilient like a tennis ball, not like an egg. It's not a question of whether or not you're going to get smacked to the ground. The question is whether or not you bounce. So as a Christian headed into the world of work and into increasingly complex relationships, let me just say, you're going to get squeezed. You're going to be hit with things you don't expect. There are going to be people out there who do not share your convictions. A world where the values that you hold dear are going to be challenged. And because you've been in an academic environment where in many cases you've been allowed to shout other people down, that just doesn't work in the workaday world. So, how do you see yourself, the world, and everything in it? Do you have the perspective of God on the things of this day and tomorrow and eternity? Do you see yourself rightly as an ambassador of the kingdom of heaven, an agent of grace, a minister of reconciliation, a sower of peace, a cultivator of the culture, a light in the darkness? Do you see yourself as a tennis ball or an egg? How did Jesus respond to opposition? Now, John says that Jesus came full of grace and truth, the Lamb of God, the very light of the world. But some people, John acknowledges right at the outset of his gospel, some people loved the darkness more than the light, which means that they did not hear nor follow Jesus. So let me just say, if they didn't follow Jesus, like the literal light of the world, the one who turned on the light at the beginning of time, the one who is the light, the one, like if they didn't listen to him, like what does it say that we would expect people to listen to us? They didn't follow him. What does it say that we would expect people to follow us? So if you honor Jesus and you represent Jesus, there are going to be some people who are attracted to that and other people who are going to be repelled. You're not going to make everybody happy, and not everybody is going to be your friend if you're a Christian. That's just reality. So be resilient. That's the one character trait, the one quality that I hope you possess and you live into as a person of faith in the future filled with hope that is now set before you. Don't believe all the doomsday sayers, nor the purveyors of every conspiracy of darkness prevailing in the world. The darkness does not prevail. Do not believe that lie. People are going to tell you, oh, it's all dark and it's getting darker. And blah, blah, blah. Okay, darkness does not prevail. The church prevails. Hell doesn't win. Jesus wins. Jesus has already triumphed over hell and death, the devil and his minions. You are a person possessed of a spirit not of this world, but you're in the world to serve as an operative, an agent, an instrument of that opposite spirit. And that means you're going to need to be resilient. So my encouragement is that you would find a mentor who will pray with you and for you, who will walk with you as you cultivate a spirit of humility and grace, as you seek to understand those who hold different beliefs, as you let your life be characterized by love and compassion and forgiveness, even toward those who are going to oppose you, that you would resist the temptation to pick up offenses, and that you would learn to operate out of the opposite spirit, the very Spirit of Christ. So, as you go forth from this place, from this commencement address, I encourage you to carry with you the courage of conviction and the humility of Christ and the love that surpasses all understanding. And friend, remember, you're not alone. The God who has called you is faithful, and he's never going to leave you and never forsake you. So congratulations on this great achievement. And now go forth, expecting always the unexpected, anticipating miracles, confident that with God all things are possible. And be a tennis ball. Be resilient. And be blessed. All right, there's Carmen's commencement address in case, whoever got invited to offer yours is now not showing up. Or you're not even having one. Well, there you go. Our friend Adam Holz is going to join us next. What's going on with The Chosen? How can you watch season 4? When and where is it streaming? Many of you have been asking. We're also going to reflect on people who have very high profiles in the culture who are becoming Christians. And how do we as Christians respond to that and receive them and celebrate their coming to Christ? That's up next here on Mornings with Carmen. All right, that music means our friend Adam Holz from Focus on the Family's Plugged In is back. Hey, Adam, good morning.
Good morning, Carmen. How are you?
I'm fantastic. What's blooming where you are?
Well, I guess everything, but it's so cold that you wouldn't know it. It still feels like winter. It's like the high's been like 45 degrees and it's rainy, and it's just yesterday I'm like, is it going to rain or is it going to snow? Springtime in the Rockies.
Springtime in the Rockies. Things are blooming though, and I love that. Birds are returning. People are making note here on the text line of what's blooming where they are. Mike says that dandelions are blooming where he
we have
is.
those.
Yeah, we got people talking about different kinds of birds that are returning, and showing up where they are. So that's really fun. Like orioles, like that's a sign of spring in some places. Here it's the robins when they all arrive. I've got blue,
Robins.
not blue jays, but I have these like blue birds that are very, very
Bluebirds. Yeah.
vibrant, and they are fighting. They are fighting with the mirrors of my car. And so
Oh,
I know, like they're as if that other bird is really there and they need to kill it. And I'm just like, I mean, I don't know how to make them stop. And it's very
there's got to be a
interesting and ridiculous behavior.
there's got to be a spiritual lesson in there somewhere, right? I don't know what it is, but it feels like it's in there.
Yeah, a little bit crazy. Okay, The Chosen. What's going
Yes.
on? Where can we watch it? Season 4.
Well, season 4, the most recent update that we have had is Dallas Willard said on April 20, not Dallas Willard. I always call him that. Dallas Willard is
That's
he's
okay. We
theologian.
love Dallas Willard.
Dallas Jenkins has said that the full season will release in 4 to 6 weeks or so. So that is, if you want the full thing, that's happening. But they've recently started streaming the first 3 seasons on Disney Plus, which is super interesting because obviously we've had plenty of critical things to say about Disney and Disney Plus over the last couple of years. So I love the idea that Jesus is showing up there, and I watch a whole bunch of YouTubers that is somewhere between hard news and total speculation. So I just want to say that. But I did see one YouTube video last week that said Disney's numbers that they're not releasing shows that The Chosen is out producing and outperforming everything else on the platform, which I think is pretty interesting. And again, take it with a grain of salt. I don't know that that's, pardon the pun, gospel truth, but people love this story. And I love how Dallas Jenkins and his crew really have looked for every possible avenue to get it out there. And I know that the delay of streaming for season 4 has to do with some legal issues that he has alluded to, but not really fleshed out. So I don't know exactly what that means, but they're trying to get those things sorted out.
That's really it's exciting, right? I mean, I appreciate and love that people want to find it, they want to connect with it. Okay, in sort of other news, but in something that many of us have watched over the course of time. So The Office. Who is Angela Kinsey, and what is something that that we have learned about her in terms of her Christian witness in the industry? Oh, did we lose Adam, or am I off? Hello.
No, I'm
I'm
here.
on.
You lost me.
I
can you
lost
hear me now?
Adam. Yeah, I can hear you now. Adam,
No,
maybe you don't want to talk about The Office.
no, I do. I muted myself to cough and then I forgot to unmute.
Aha.
So I'm battling the leftover ravages of influenza, which I had last week. So
Oh,
that's
well,
why
we're
my
glad
voice
you're.
sounds like this.
That's okay. We're glad you're feeling better, and we're glad you're with us. All right.
Yes.
What have you to say about who is Angela Kinsey, first of all, and what have you to say about her?
She plays a character named Christian Angela Martin she plays Angela Martin, not Christian Angela Martin. She is a Christian on The Office. And on mainstream TV, sometimes when you get stereotypical Christian characters, they're just there as a foil, right? They're not a three-dimensional character. They're there as a straw man to set up and knock down and laugh at and mock. And apparently there were some of those scenes in The Office, and she, as an actress, actually pushed back, and she says, quote, there were 1 or 2 times where there would be a joke written for her that I thought was just really stereotypical, maybe one note. And I like to think of her as a full, well-rounded person. I do remember there was one particular storyline where Angela was being super judgy, and she pushed back against that and said, you know what? Let's not do that. And they sort of rework the script. And what I like about this is that we often have our own stereotypes about Hollywood, right? That Hollywood is progressive, that it's godless, that it's fill in the blank with your sort of our own super judgy words, right? As Christians. And sometimes that may be an accurate understanding, but we forget that there are people of faith in Hollywood who are trying to live out their own walk with Jesus, maybe quietly, maybe not in ways that typically show up in the headlines, but they have these moments of conviction where they're like, no, I'm not going to do
Mm-hmm.
that. And so
Mm-hmm.
I love this story because it reminds us there are people in the biz, as they call it, and they may not be making Christian movies or showing up in, high profile Christian projects, but they're there and they have influence. And I think it's a great reminder to pray for them, even if we don't always know who they are, because I didn't know who this actress or this character was before this story came out.
Hey, when we come back, will you do some reviews with us? I know that there are a lot of
You
people
bet.
intrigued by the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and there
Yep.
are some of these like tarot, which it feels like we should make some worldview comments
Self-explanatory.
about. Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
It's self-explanatory, right? But I do think that like that's one of those things when it's like, okay, this really does give us an opportunity to have a worldview conversation. All right, we're going to do that with
Absolutely.
Adam Holtz up next. When you think about the things that you're watching and the things that other people are watching, how are you engaging in those conversations as a Christian? Some films that are out now, The Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes or Tarot. Yeah. What are you watching? Why are you watching them? What are other people watching and how are you talking with them about that? All of that up next here on Mornings with Carmen.
This is Susie Larson, host of Susie Larson Live. Maybe you have a loved one that you've been praying for years, and they still haven't trusted Jesus. Or maybe you have a loved one who once had a vibrant faith, but has since walked away. If this is true for you, know this: you're not alone. God sees you, He loves you, and He knows about the heartache you feel. And we care about it too. I've recorded 15 audio clips to encourage your soul. Text the word HEART to 877-933-2484.
Do you remember the 2011 film Rise of the Planet of the Apes? There was an attempt to cure Alzheimer's, and then that treatment on a chimpanzee resulted in the second generation birth of a chimpanzee who was able to talk. The movie then progressed from there, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Then there are these successive sequels, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War of the Planet of the Apes, which leads us to the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And our friend Adam Holtz is here from Focus on the Family's Plugged In. There's a review posted at pluggedin.com that you should check out. Give us a worldview on this. Obviously, there's a conversation to be had here about what makes human beings unique, and also a conversation to be had here about what we're doing when through technology and in this case, gene manipulation, like what we're really doing with manipulating other kinds of mammals into human qualities, to have human qualities.
Wow, that is a very deep set of observations, Carmen. Let me just back up a little bit and then we'll talk worldview. So this movie is set about 300 years after the events of the last of those three sequels you mentioned, which came out in 2017. And the apes have pretty much taken over the world, and the same technology that was supposed to help humans, it made apes smarter, but it basically turned human beings into animals who are mute and who live underground. And a few of them can still talk. And one of those characters, her name is May, comes to the surface. She's looking for technology in another underground cache, essentially, that potentially can help the humans. And of course, there's a bad ape named Proximus. He gets wind of it, and apes and a few humans fight. That's basically what happens here. This is a CGI fest. Now, I will say, transitioning into the worldview conversation, Proximus wants to get his hands on this technology because he believes it will accelerate the process of evolution. And he wants to accelerate that process in himself to make himself smarter. And I think that when we get to the conversation about worldview and technology, it sounds like science fiction, but we're very close to, people beginning to experiment with implanting chips in people's brains. Elon Musk has done some initial experiments with this thing called Neuralink. I think in our lifetime, we are going to see, and this is going to sound crazy, but honest to goodness cyborgs who have some kind of technology embedded in our brains to accelerate our thinking, to expand our memory, to do the things that computers can do. And I think there are going to be bioethical and theological conversations to be had all over the place, because to us right now it sounds freaky, but with all technology as it's adopted, there is a tipping point at which we go from being cautious to I can't participate in society unless I'm using technology in this way. And I think these sorts of movies can provide a jumping off conversation for that kind of talk, and it wasn't that long ago really that smartphones would have been science fiction. And now they are not only integral parts of our lives, but perhaps compulsive parts of our lives. So that's a technology question that we're grappling with today. And I think, again, these sorts of movies give us lots of space to talk about that, even though I will say this movie is not as good, just artistically speaking, as the first three in this latest reboot.
Yeah, it's a provocative conversation. And since you brought up Neuralink, right now, Neuralink is seeking people with quadriplegia to participate in this medical device clinical trial to make a brain-computer interface to help them restore capacities that they have lost. And of course, when you think about the hope that gives,
right?
Yeah, it just
So you can happen.
Yeah,
it can be a good thing, right?
Right, but then you talk about what are we doing, and then where does the transhumanism conversation come into all of that? I mean, and what does it mean to manipulate the things of life itself? All right, so tarot seems like we would have a very, very immediate self-explanatory response. Tarot is what it sounds like, right? Tarot cards.
It is. It's a bunch of kids who go away to a bed and breakfast for a weekend. They run out of alcohol. They're rummaging through the house for alcohol, and they find this set of very ancient tarot cards, which, of course, the tarot deck is a very occult sort of thing that, those who practice it would say it gives insight. It's divination, basically. You get this combination of characters on cards who, when you put them all together and you get a reading, it says something supposedly about
divination, which if you're listening and you're not familiar with that, it is something that is biblically prohibited. God speaks against this in the Bible. So go ahead.
Right. And the movie actually sort of suggests, oh yeah, this is a bad idea. But of course the movie wants to have it both ways. The movie wants to play with the idea, even as it's a bit of a cautionary tale. But I think building again on what you're saying, Carmen, the Old Testament especially and the New Testament speak to a spiritual reality. And there are boundaries in place in terms of trying to contact spirits of the dead, trying to contact demons, trying to divine, and divination is based on that word, to foretell the future. Because all of that ends up being about control and power. When we want to know what's coming, it's so that we can control things. God, in contrast, wants us to trust him, to walk with him, and to surrender that impulse to be in control. And really, it goes all the way back to the garden, right? I mean, you shall be like God is sort of the heart of everything occult, which is I can bypass God and I can get my way on my terms, and I don't have to worry about submitting to him. And that really is at the core of all of these sorts of spiritual counterfeits, and in the the alternative path marked out, which is why God forbids it.
That is so good. You guys can read these reviews and so many more at pluggedin.com. Sorry we didn't get to the other things that we thought we might get to talk about today, Adam, but some days we just run out of time.
Well, I talk too much. So there you go.
It's all good. Hey, thank you, brother. Prayers for your continued restoration of health, and thank you
Thank you.
so much for talking with us today. Yeah, that's Adam
You-
Holz. You can find him at Focus on the Family's Plugged In. That's pluggedin.com. Lots of good stuff there that we didn't get to today, so check it out. Yes, those of you asking for the Friday Farm Report, there is going to be a very robust Friday Farm Report. That's up next. Jim and I celebrated our anniversary this year, but we did so at the ER. Yeah, I'm going to tell you a little bit about that story. And yes, those of you wondering, are the cicadas have the cicadas fully arrived? Yes, they have, and they are loud, and it's getting louder. It's a very odd, strange time to be in. So yes, we're going to talk about all of that up next. You're listening to Mornings with Carmen. This is the Faith Radio Network, and maybe you've just joined us for the very first time. And if so, we would love to introduce ourselves to you. And so would you just text the word welcome to 877-933-2484. Maybe we've just arrived in your neck of the woods or your neighborhood in a live radio signal, and you've been roaming around the dial, and you're like, hey, who are these people, and what are they up to, and how did they get to my neighborhood? Yeah, we would love to introduce ourselves and welcome you to the Faith Radio listening family. Again, just text the word welcome to 877-933-2484. That is the number at which you can reach us on our text line as well. It's the way that we process things that we give away. And so that's a good one to save in your phone. Under Faith Radio, you could save it under Mornings with Carmen, like whatever's going to help you find it easily when the time comes. 877-933-2484. All right, we will be right back in just a moment, so stay tuned. Again, this is Mornings with Carmen. Have you had a wedding anniversary lately? Are you looking forward to one coming up? Jim and I just celebrated our 13th wedding anniversary a couple of days ago. And we did not celebrate it as we had planned. I still have a hard time even describing to you what I experienced. But we made a little celebratory acknowledgement of the day, anniversary, Facebook Live video. And I tracked him down in the barn, and we made it, and it was really fun. And I walked back to the house, and I was setting about, getting ready for the things that we were going to be doing that evening, and we were going to have a family dinner. And anyway, I suddenly began to feel like I had sprained my ankle, but I hadn't sprained my ankle. And so that was just weird. And at the same time, I was trying to get Matthew's graduation announcements all put together and mailed out and all of that, which required a trip down the street to one of our kids' houses. And so I did that. And by the time I got down there, I was like limping, like really limping, as if I had sprained my ankle, and my ankle was getting hot and swelling, as if I had sprained my ankle, but I had not. Let me remind you one more time. By the time I got back from there, I'm still carrying on with things, wondering what in the world is going on. And it took about 30 minutes for me to be totally doubled over in pain. And so I called Jim, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but we have to get somebody to look at this. So instead of doing all of the things that we had planned to do on the evening of our anniversary, we went to the ER. And there you go. I'm all good now, by the way. A couple of shots in the arm and a steroid treatment that they have put me on. Because apparently I had a uric acid buildup in my joint, and there you go. We don't really know why, because I don't do all of the things that actually produce gout, which is what this has been diagnosed as. So there you have it. The good news is I don't have a blood clot. I don't have some deadly infection, and I've never had a flare-up of this, and so I don't know if I ever will again, but there you have it. Not the way I had intended to spend my anniversary evening, but it's definitely one I'll never forget. On the good news side of things, in the Friday Farm Report, Jim, I reached out to him at the barn, I guess it was a couple of days ago, and I called him and I said, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I can't talk right now. I'm having a play date. I'm like, oh, okay. Randy must be over. So Randy, you have prayed with me after the death of Jim's brother and the deaths of two of his very, very dear friends, just in the last few years. You have prayed with me that God would give Jim a new old friend. It's really, really hard to make a new old friend. Old friends are hard to make, right? And it takes a really long time to make an old friend. Well, God has just given Jim the gift of Randy, and Randy is a new old friend. He's like an old soul. It's like he's been a part of our lives forever. He has this most joyful, radiant Jesus spirit, and he's incredibly smart. And like Jim, he is interested in a million different things all at the same time with the same level of passionate enthusiasm. So I'm so blessed that my husband is so blessed. And so I want to celebrate that with you today. Yes, the cicadas have arrived. They are disgusting. I'm just going to go ahead and say so. There are lots of them. They do have really big, beady red eyes. They do have giant wings. There are gazillions of them, and they do make lots of noise. And so I was kind of hopeful that all of these storms that have been passing through the part of the country where I live, I was kind of hoping, well, maybe that'll diminish them. Oh no. They don't. They seem to laugh at the storms as they pass by, as if that thunder is like competition for the noise they're making. But on the storm side of things, we have been nationwide really experiencing some tremendous weather. And so weather prayers of all kinds rising up to the Lord. And every time we talk about weather prayers, WEATHER, I am reminded that we ought to be praying weather prayers, WHETHER, like whether in good times or bad, whether the weather is good or bad, we're going to be praying, right? We're going to be praying for God's will to be done, for God to get his glory, for us to be able to see what God intends us to see, and to provide opportunities for us to do what God intends for us to do. So weather prayers. Here in Middle Tennessee, we're praying for the Sullivan family. So in the midst of those storms, everybody on their street was sort of out helping one another clean up after the storm, and there was a lot of water, as you might imagine. And their son got swept into the storm drain. And when he finally came out, much further down the street, he had been in the water for a long enough period of time that his brain is not functioning. And so we're praying with them. We're praying with them for God's mercy. And so you may know somebody today who needs those kinds of prayers. You may need those kinds of prayers today. Let's be praying God's mercy, God's mercy, God's mercy into one another's lives today. Let's be praying for God's mercy for prodigals. Praying God's mercy for those who are physically suffering. Let's be praying God's mercy for those who are in conflict and war zones. Let's be praying for God's mercy for people who are being mistreated in relationships. Let's be praying for God's mercy today, and let's be agents of it. How might you deliver? How might you deliver God's mercy in the life of another person today? It occurs to me that when Jesus is asked, after he is asked, what's the first and greatest commandment? And he says, to love the Lord your God with all your heart and your soul and your mind and your strength. And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And then, the rather cheeky question is asked, well, who's my neighbor? I mean, maybe it's a legit question. We don't really, it's hard to say, like, right, who's my neighbor? Because clearly your neighbor is the people who are proximate to you. And so your neighbor is anybody who is proximate to you. So your neighbor and my neighbor may be the same person or people, but they may be very, very different, because the people that you are proximate to may be different than the people. In fact, they probably are different than the people that I am proximate to. So the neighbors are certainly the people on my street, but my neighbors are also the people who I encounter day to day along life's way. And that's how Jesus answers the question, right? You're traveling on a road from here to there, and along the way, you see a person in need. Do you pass them by on the other side because, you didn't leave enough margin in your day, or because you think you're more important than they are? Or do you stop and render aid? Do you show mercy? That's who Jesus counts as neighbor. the person who is found to be neighbor is the one who shows mercy. So to whom are you going to be invited to show mercy today? We got to leave enough margin to show mercy. We can't just keep passing by on the other side. What else is going on the farm? Going on the farm that I can talk about today on the Friday Farm Report? I have three different kinds of flowers right now that have been delivered. One, anniversary flowers. So, I have anniversary flowers from Jim. I have get well flowers from some of my kids, and I have Mother's Day flowers from So I got all kinds of flowers, and I love that. It's so much fun. We are enjoying the first fruits of the garden on the farm. Our strawberries, I think, are already done, or all but done. And our chard is delicious right now. Really, really wonderful chard in the garden. The cows are happy. The chickens are faithfully producing. The dogs are keeping the boys busy, refilling holes, because, I don't know, they've taken to digging holes in the orchard, which is ridiculous, and the boys have been filling them in very, very, very faithfully. Jim and I are headed out today to tend this weekend to a dear old friend and mentor of mine whose precious wife passed away at the end of April. The memorial service is tomorrow, and he asked me to officiate, so I would appreciate your prayers. Pretty hard to deliver a message, not just the eulogy, but to deliver the word, right? To bring both the eulogy, the good word about the life of my friend Tricia, but also to bring the word of God. Pretty hard to do that when the person who has asked you to do it has been a pastor and mentor in your life for a long time. So I appreciate your prayers. Pray for me. And then it really has left me thinking about, who tends to all of the things that need tending to when we need to be away tending to someone or something else. And so I'm just so grateful for the way that God sends in the tender tenders. So who are the tender tenders in your life, and how might God be sending you today to tenderly tend to something that somebody's not going to get done because they need to be tenderly tending to something or someone else? So just think about that. Is there a gap you could fill? Is there an errand you could run? Is there a service you could provide? Is there a dog you could walk or water? Is there a child you could watch so that someone else can go tend tenderly to things that need tending to? So there is this domino effect in all of this, right? I go tend to the things that only I can attend to. But then others must come and fill those gaps behind me and tend to the things that I am now going to leave untended. So let's be thinking about that. Let's be thinking about who will tend to all the things that need tending to when we have to be away tending tenderly to other things. How can you fill in the gaps of tender tending today? When we come back, we're going to talk about Mother's Day. We're going to talk about our moms. We're going to talk about, how to honor them and appreciate them this coming Mother's Day. That's up next here on Mornings with Carmen. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for giving sacrificially. I'm thinking here about the song, Thank You for Being a Friend. If I threw a party and invited everyone I knew, look, you actually showed up. The song says the biggest gift would be from me, and the card attached would say, thank you for being a friend. But really, you're the one who showed up with the big gift during our spring fundraiser for Faith Radio. So thank you for being a friend. Thank you for walking with us in this ministry. Thank you for praying each and every day that God would get the glory and God would advance his kingdom through this ministry of encouragement and equipping and empowering. I hope you are all of those things through the ministry of Faith Radio. I hope that you are encouraged and equipped and empowered to walk your faith out into the world that God so loves and to do so in ways that honor Jesus. To him be the glory and thanks be to you. Thank you for being a friend. If you weren't able to give yet, you can still give now at myfaithradio.com or by texting the word give to 877-933-2484. Thanks again for being a friend. Mother's Day is coming. How are you going to honor your mom? Maybe spend a little time in Proverbs 31 and think about how you could rise up and call your mom blessed. What might that look like? And you may be saying to yourself, oh, my mom was not a great mom, or my mom is not a great mom. Yeah, but your mom is your mom. And she gave you life, and we want to be thankful for that. Being a mom is, you might think of it as something just really ordinary, but it's not. It's an extraordinary thing to be a mother. And maybe God has blessed you to be a stepmom or a foster mom. Maybe he has called you to and privileged you to be a godmother in the life of someone else. Not necessarily like, formally so, like, named as such, but to be able to walk alongside someone, as a woman of God, a woman of faith. Motherhood is a great gift of God, and it is a calling. And every mom knows that she doesn't do it alone. She can't. And moms know that we're not perfect. Far from it. Moms maybe know better than anybody else how important forgiveness is. Not just forgiving ourselves, but asking our kids to forgive us. So let me just say to you as a mom today, whatever kind of mom you are, whatever stage of life you are in as a mother, you're not alone. You are appreciated. You are loved. God sees you. God appreciates that you have been a vessel that has delivered life into the world or is raising up a generation for him. And for moms who have prodigals out there, God sees you. God knows right where your prodigal child is. God's not abandoning nor forsaking them, even though they are abandoning and forsaking him. Every single day, we want to be praying for moms, and we want to be celebrating praying moms. I was reminded about the conversation that we had about, praying for our children from head to toe, and just thinking about what a privilege it is to, as a mom, for me as a stepmom, but now as a grandmom, to be able to pray for those who are younger than me. I mean, some of them are now adults, right? I've got kids who have kids, so praying for your child from head to toe doesn't stop even when they have children of their own. So even as you are praying for your grandchildren from head to toe, keep praying for your children from head to toe. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. Eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. How are you praying as a mom from head to toe? For your children, for your grandchildren, for the people that God brings along life's way, that he invites you to walk with and mentor and shepherd and love as a mom. Who do you invite to your table, and who do you mother there? I mean, let me just tell you, I hen a lot of people. I'm just that kind of woman. I just open wide those wings and I just hen them in. I don't really care whose chicks they are. I just hen them all in. And let me just invite you to have that kind of spirit. There are just a lot of people who need a mom today. They didn't have a mom like my mom. But everybody needs a mom like my mom. And everybody needs a mom like my mom's mom. So when you think about shepherding the hearts of emerging generations, when you think about the kind of mom that somebody needs, how could you fill in those gaps? How can you fill in those gaps? Not by disparaging the mother they didn't have, or the mother that they did have that wasn't all that she could or should have been. And maybe that's true for you. How can we get what we need from God, who loves us very much like a mother. We call him Father, but that doesn't mean that God doesn't love us in so many ways, like a mother. Scripture talks about that. Scripture, yes, describes God in many, many ways. And one of those is, like a hen, henning them all in, or a mama bear. And so, let's celebrate mama bears and the way that God has invited us into relationship with one another, where we do get to invite people to table fellowship, and we do so with the kind of hospitality of a welcome home and a welcome heart, where we do provide in ways that really only mothers can, where we hold people, where we put our hand, we cup their faces in our hands. That's a mothering act. It doesn't really matter how old you are. You need that tender affection from time to time where a person just holds your face in their hands. Who needs that today in your life? What are the ways in which you need to be rising up to celebrate the goodness of your mom, even though there were times and spaces and ways that she did not fulfill all the things that you read about in Proverbs 31? She gave you the gift of life. And so let's honor her for that. And then let's also honor all of those women who along the way have mothered us. Maybe they were teachers, maybe they were babysitters, maybe they were caregivers or coaches. Who are the women along the way who have mothered you, shepherded your heart in the faith, shown you the qualities and the character of God and godliness? And how are you serving in that way in the lives of others today? Everybody needs a mom. Not everybody had a great one growing up. But you and I, as women of faith, can serve in that role today. It doesn't really matter how old someone is. They still need to be mothered. And so women of faith, let's step into that role. Lisa Bevere invites us to do it. That's kind of her challenge to all of us as godmothers today, that people need godmothering. They need women of faith to step in and press in to life and shepherd their hearts. So let me encourage you to be doing that today. What's ahead? What's ahead for you this weekend? How are you going to be in the Word of God and allow the Word of God to get into you this weekend? How are you going to be an agent of God's grace and an ambassador of His kingdom? Maybe you could share Faith Radio with someone else. If you haven't already done so, we invite you to download the app to your phone. You can just text the word app, APP, to 877-933-2484. Share this ministry with somebody that you know that needs to be encouraged, that needs to know that God is real and God sees them and God loves them and Jesus has already done everything necessary for their salvation. Who do you know that does not yet know Jesus? Could you introduce them to us? Because we'd like to introduce them to Him. Maybe you could serve as an agent of grace in someone else's life in that way today. Share the Faith Radio app with somebody that you know who needs to know Jesus or wants to know Him better. That's our heart. That's our heart. That's what we want to do. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I know you can only spend it once, and it's so valuable. So thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and God bless. Thanks for listening to Mornings with Carmen LaBerge. Podcasts like this are available because of your support. If it's important to you to hear things that encourage your faith, click the link in the show notes to give now. And thanks.